Welcome back to Sarita's garden. So today I just came in and harvested our big leaf chaya or broadleaf. I don't know what the variety is actually called, but anyway, so this is the chaya, also known as tree spinach, and it's underneath our Jamaican cherry. So that's this big huge tree that's kind of over it. Not to be confusing, but we also have another chaya tree next to it. This is the more the pollinator version of chaya, and it has these white flowers on it that, let's see, does it have flowers now? Oh yeah, there's some of those white flowers. So the butterflies just love that for nectar, and the bees. The bees are constantly on that white chaya. But that chaya leaf, if you can notice, has, see how there's like a lot of space in between them? They're like more skinny pieces of the leaves, whereas the broadleaf, again, I don't know if this is really the broadleaf, but that's how we call it. See how that leaf is more fat looking? So what I find is you just get more leaf for eating from this varieties. And I also just like that this variety doesn't taste quite as chewy to me. I find that the pollinator variety, the one with the flowers, tastes a little bit more chewy. So in here, the stems of the chaya were going up about 3 feet higher, and they were really getting bunched up into the Jamaican cherry tree. So I came in and I cut down this chaya about 3 feet, and here's the pile of the chaya. So, right, it's on these branches. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick off all the leaves, and I like to leave them on the stems. So here's my basket of some of the leaves that I've picked. So if you can see here, I've left them on these long stems, and I find that that's easier. It's easier to wash it in the basket like this. Then I take it inside, I spread it on the counter, and then I'll stack up like 8 to 10 leaves, and I'll yank all the stems off at one time. I find that just to be more efficient than taking the stems off outside. So this is the process. I'm going to pick them all off today. I'm not sure how long that will take. And then I will wash them in the basket, and then I'll bring them inside and I'll take you through all the steps. I just finished picking off all of the leaves, and I wanted to talk about a couple things. Number one, I wanted to talk about there's like a latex oozy liquid that comes out when you pick the stems off, and I do wear gloves. I think it can irritate some people's skin. You can sort of see like that white coming out right there from the stem where I just picked it off, and then sometimes it'll show up on the leaves. You'll see like a white smear of something, and it's just from the ends of the stems. So that's one thing. You may want to wear gloves. The other thing, not the variety that we have, but there are chaya varieties I've heard that have like stinging hairs, and you definitely want to use gloves when you're harvesting that. Okay, let's talk about one other thing, and that is propagation. I've already propagated the chaya into about maybe 6 to 8 places in the yard, so I feel like that might be enough. So I'm not going to save any of these. I'll just throw these into like a pile to just like compost somewhere in one of our garden beds. But I do want to talk about how you could take one of these sticks. Okay, so there's the stick, and I would cut it into maybe like 12 inches. You want a few nodes of the from where the leaves were, and then it would just put it into either a pot of dirt, water it well, keep it wet, or you could just put it directly into the ground. And that's what I did with a couple cuttings. I think I did this. This is September. I think I might have done this in the spring because I was thinking, I want more chaya. So here you can see I had put these sticks in the ground. There's one. There's a second one. Oh, I did put 4 over here. There's a third one in the back. Now they do like sun, and this area does get a little bit of shade. So, you know, we'll see how it goes. But I'm really happy with this particular variety. I wanted to have it all over, and so very easy to propagate. And like I showed, just use a cutting from the material when you've removed the leaves to eat. You can just use that piece and pop them into some pots or pop them directly into the soil, keep them watered, and then they do grow a little bit on the slow side, particularly in the winter. I learned that from a fellow gardener that they really take off in the heat. So I've seen them growing this one I think gets the most sun. These grew really well during the summer, but I think they'll slow down a lot in the winter. These greens were pre-washed outside in that blue basket that you saw them in. And then they dried for a couple hours while I went and did some errands. And now I've just laid them out on a big towel on the countertop. So what I do is I take a handful of them and I kind of stack them up so that there's, I don't know, 5 to 8 of them. And I kind of stack them up to get them all kind of like that. And then I hold the leaves and then I rip off the stem end. Okay, so then it just looks like that. And then I just rip those up into some pieces as well so that they're not such big flat pieces boiling in the pot. And then they look like that. So I'll pile all that up into a big bowl. Meanwhile, I have the big stock pot that I did recently purchase specifically for this. I've got that filled with water, and that is going to boil while I'm preparing the leaves. Once I have ripped up all the leaves, then I'm going to do probably a 2-time wash and rinse in the sink before I pop them in. But I'll show you that. Now I have the first pile ripped off, and it's almost like a full bowl. I think this pile over here was a little bigger. I'm not sure, but I'm going to start and rinse this pile. So there's all the stems I ripped off. Remember, chaya is not something that you eat raw. It has cyanide, similar to the yucca cassava family, and so you don't want to eat this raw ever. You always want to cook it. From what I've read, different people say different things, but a minimum of 30 minutes. I tend to cook mine 45 to 60 because I like it to get a little bit more tender. And, okay, so I'm going to fill this bowl up with water. I'm going to really swish it around well. I'll drain it over here, and I'm going to do that 2 times. Then I'll pop the clean ones up into a bowl, and then I'll go repeat with the other stack of chaya and rip off all the stems. This has been the process that I've found that seems to go the fastest for me. It really helps to get the bigger stock pot so that I can fit more in there and cook it. And this batch may even be so big that I freeze some of it. So I just kind of massage it around. I didn't see too many spiders or bugs coming off of this. Remember, with the cyanide in the leaf, not too many bugs bother this, but there will be spiders and sometimes like eggs of spiders on the back, so you do want to kind of keep an eye out. And I did see some of those leaves in my initial pulling them off of the stems outside, and I just discarded those. And outside I did see about 4 different kinds of spiders on the leaves. So I do like to kind of leave them, the stems, like you saw I had them on the table outside. I like to leave them there, walk away, go do something else, as long as I'm not leaving it in the sun. I just like for the bugs to have a chance to get off. Same thing when I brought them inside. I put them on that towel, and I mean, granted, I don't really want spiders in my house. I do want them to have a chance to kind of get away. And remember, this was under a Jamaican cherry tree, so there is a brown, well, it was a white flower, but there's sometimes these brown things that I find on the leaves. So I usually just pick those off when I am taking the stems off. So this is my process here. I'll just pull all that out, and then I will drain this out, refill the bowl with clean water, and then I'll just move this pile back over. Maybe super simple, basic for you guys, but sometimes you guys want to see the details, so I'm happy to show that. So I'll let that fill up, I'll drain it over on the left, and then I'll start picking the second pile and finish up with that. I finished the pile. Those are all the stems. I only found 1 bug, and I'm not sure if he's going to make it, but this little fly right here. Well, I didn't know if it was a spider. It's dark, yeah. Not a great view, But anyway, I'll send them out with the stems back into the garden. The water's almost boiling. Now, we also want to review the fact that as soon as the greens go in, the fan's going to go on, and I'm going to turn on the whole house fan because the cyanide releases into the air, and you want to just make sure you have really good ventilation. So I've got the first pile of the greens here to go in. I'll just let them kind of sink down in there, and then I'll stir them about in a minute. Okay, so this one has been washed twice. And here's the second batch that's been washed. Remember I mentioned earlier about ripping up the leaves a couple times, because when the pot of water with the leaves boils, sometimes there's some splashing that occurs, and I've been burned before. Not so pleasant, so I kind of keep my distance from the pot and make sure that I don't boil it too high, and ripping the leaves keeps them in a smaller shape so that the air bubbles don't get underneath it and cause that big splashing. So it's not boiling quite yet, but when it does, I'm going to definitely turn the heat down. I've got one more wash to do here. And then I'll add it to the pot. All of the chaya is into the pot. And so it's not really boiling yet, but I did start the timer because it was about to boil before that. So I'll remember, I'm just going to keep an eye on it, make sure it doesn't start boiling with a vengeance. So it's on high right now, but I'll turn it down soon. And that didn't take too long to pull the leaves off the stems. Remember, I did rip them from the bottom. Remember, I had a pile of the stems, maybe 5 to 10 stems on the counter, pull them all together, kind of at the neck of the stem where the leaf meets the stem, ripped off the long stems, and then I ripped the leaf from the bottom up and then in half. I sort of twist it. So I get them into pieces, wash them 2 times. So now they've been washed 3 times, once outside with just a rough hose in a basket wash, and then now twice inside with the colander, and now they're in the pot. I have opened up the vent at the top of the window, so there's fresh air coming in there for ventilation, and I have the hood fan on, and then I also have the house fan on. It is important to keep ventilation really good while you are cooking chaya. Remember, the cyanide gets released into the air, so cook it long enough for that to happen, generally a minimum of 30 minutes to boil. So here's, it's been cooking for almost 10 minutes, and I'm definitely pushing the limits of this pot. This is probably a batch and a half, the amount that I put in. Probably could have saved half part of it, a quarter of it, to cook another time. And sometimes I do that. Sometimes I'll keep the leaves, without picking the leaves off the stems, I put them into like a grocery bag, like a plastic grocery bag, and just kind of tie it up. They're still a little wet, but they don't seem to get slimy. They seem to keep in the fridge like almost up to a week. So I could have done that, but I just felt like, well, let's just try it. This was a huge batch, as you saw, all of the stems and such. So see what happens. It's lifting all the way up the kind of this patty of greens, just sort of lifts up. And this is where you have to be careful with the water boiling from the sides that it doesn't splatter on you. But what I do is try to lift it and pull it in and push it back down. I've also turned the heat down so it's not going to be boiling as fiercely. So it's on like 5 is what the burner is on now out of 10, and it's still boiling. So I just keep an eye on it and keep pushing it back down, and through the cooking a lot of this water does evaporate, and the level of the water is just below those 2 little buttons. It'll go down a bit by the time I'm done. So just kind of keep stirring it around, watching to not get burned. And we've got, 50 minutes to go. So remember, the fans are on, good ventilation, and all of that. All right, we are down to the last 25 seconds of the hour, and I have been stirring and turning the greens regularly. You can see how the water level has gone down a bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn off the stove. I'm going to get the timer because it's about to go off. And I'm just going to let it sit here for, I don't know, I'm just going to let it cool for a bit, maybe 30 minutes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drain it, and then I'm going to run it through the food processor for like a fine chop. Okay, so I am putting the cooked chaya that's been draining in this pot here. All right, so you can see how those leaves are like a little bit, like they're kind of big. And what I like to do is I like to chop it down a little bit into a little bit more easy to digest pieces. So I'm putting it into the food processor. I'm going to put in a little bit of olive oil and a little bit of lemon. And then a little bit of salt. We'll sprinkle of salt. Okay, so then I'm going to run that through the food processor. And I kind of do it in pulses. So that's usually enough times to pulse it. And then you can see where I've already put that into containers here. So like I mentioned, I'm going to have some to freeze. So it's already seasoned. It's got a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of lemon, salt, and like we just added this last night to our pasta sauce. And so we had mushrooms that I sauteed in red sauce. And then I cooked a package of the Beyond Beef ground. That's a plant-based ground meat. And then I added in the chaya, just like that was already cooked. And I put that into the pot and let it simmer and cook. It was delicious. So just another easy way to get some greens. So that's how I store it. I'll put 2 of these in the freezer. I'll keep 1 in the fridge. And like this container, when it's almost full, that will last me about 5 to 7 days. I usually eat it at lunch, and I have maybe about a third to a half cup of the chaya. So I hope it's been interesting to learn about what it looks like when it's growing, how we harvest it, how we cook it. I did talk a little bit about propagating, and then I'll add in the notes for the video some resources on the nutrition of chaya. It's very nutritious, and it is a food that is used all throughout the world and feeds a lot of people. And it's a great crop to grow because it is drought tolerant, easy to grow, doesn't really attract pests. And yeah, I'm super into this plant because it provides a lot of nutrition, easy to grow, and easy to propagate. Thanks for watching Sarita's Garden. See you next time.